Close your eyes. The past is about to speak. When you picture Alexander the Great, what do you see? Perhaps a figure cast in bronze and sunlight, hair flowing like a lion's mane, raising a golden goblet in a Persian palace overflowing with silks and spices. You imagine epic feasts, mountains of roasted meat and rivers of exotic wine, the culinary spoils of a conquered world. It's a glorious image, fit for a man who became a legend. But the reality, especially in his youth, was far grittier, colder, and smelled distinctly of wet wool and goat cheese. Before the empire, there was Macedonia, a hard, mountainous kingdom on the fringes of the Greek world. Life here wasn't about philosophical debates in sunny courtyards. It was about survival, discipline, and the constant threat of invasion. The food reflected that reality. It was fuel, not entertainment. Honestly, you probably wouldn't last a day on the diet that forged the man who would break the Persian Empire. Before we dive into the surprisingly austere menu of a conqueror, let me know where you are listening from tonight and what time it is there. It's always wonderful to see the community gathered here for some boring history for sleep. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Let the past sing you to sleep. You wake before the sun. The air in your chamber is sharp and cold. You are in Pella, the capital of the Kingdom of Macedon. This is a palace, yes, but it's a Macedonian palace. It's functional, built of heavy stone that seems to retain the chill of the winter, even now in the early autumn. There is no central heating, no plush carpeting to warm your feet. You swing your legs off the bed. It's a simple wooden frame, the mattress stuffed with straw and covered in layered wool blankets. The wool is coarse, slightly oily to the touch, and it carries the faint, earthy scent of the sheep it came from. Your feet meet the cold stone floor, sending a jolt through your body. You reach immediately for your cloak, a heavy, densely woven piece of fabric that serves as your primary defense against the mountain air. A small bronze brazier in the corner offers a weak orange glow, but it does little to combat the pervasive dampness. The air smells of old smoke, stale wine from the previous night's gathering, and the subtle mildew that clings to the tapestries depicting heroic, muscular figures in the midst of battle. You are a young noble, perhaps Alexander himself, or one of his close companions, the heteroi. Your life is one of rigorous discipline. Your father, King Philip II, is a formidable man, a warrior king who has transformed Macedonia from a backwater into the dominant military power in Greece. He demands excellence, and comfort is seen as a weakness. A servant enters quietly. There is no cheerful greeting, no elaborate presentation. They carry a tray, but it doesn't hold what you might imagine a prince's breakfast to be. There are no delicate pastries, no exotic fruits imported from the south, no rich, creamy sauces. The main component of your breakfast, the meal to break the night's fast, is simple and utilitarian. It is a bowl of porridge. But forget soft, sweet oatmeal. This is made from barley, the staple grain of the ancient Mediterranean. The barley has been coarsely ground and boiled, perhaps with a little water, perhaps with a thin goat's milk. You sit on a stool, the cloak pulled tight around you, and lift the wooden spoon. The porridge is thick, dense, and lukewarm, As you taste it, the flavor is nutty, slightly grassy, and deeply earthy. It's seasoned only with a pinch of salt. There is no honey, no sugar, as we know it is centuries away from common use. The texture is chewy, and if you aren't careful, you might feel the grit of the millstone that ground the grain. It's heavy food. It sits in your stomach, designed to provide slow-burning energy for a day that will be spent drilling, wrestling, and studying tactics. To accompany the porridge, there is cheese. Macedonia is a land of shepherds, and the cheese reflects this. It's not a soft, mild cheese. It is a hard, pungent block of goat or sheep's milk cheese preserved in brine. You break off a piece. It's intensely salty and sharp, cutting through the blandness of the barley. The contrast is bracing, almost aggressive. It wakes you up far more effectively than the lukewarm porridge. If it is the right season, you might have a small handful of dried figs. These are dark, wrinkled, and intensely sweet. They are the only real indulgence on the tray, a burst of concentrated fructose that provides immediate energy. And then there is the drink. There is no coffee, no tea, no orange juice. You are a Macedonian, and Macedonians drink wine. This is one of the defining cultural markers that separates you from the southern Greeks, the Athenians, and the Spartans. They look down on you. To them, you are semi-barbarians, rough mountain folk who speak a coarse dialect of Greek. Historians still argue over the exact relationship between Macedonians and the other Greeks, but the cultural disdain from the Southerners is very real. The biggest scandal in their eyes is your drinking habit. The Southern Greeks mix their wine with water, usually 3 parts water to 1 part wine. They consider drinking unmixed wine to be the height of savagery, a practice only for drunkards and barbarians. Macedonians, however, are famous, or infamous, for drinking their wine straight or akratos. But it is early morning. Even the hard-drinking Macedonians show some restraint at dawn. The cup on your tray contains wine, yes, but it is heavily diluted. It's mostly water, with just enough red wine to color it a pale pink and give it a slightly acidic bite. This mixture is safer to drink than the water from the wells, which is often contaminated. The alcohol provides a few more calories and helps to kill bacteria. You sip it. It tastes thin, watery, and faintly metallic from the clay cup. This is the breakfast of a future king. It is austere, repetitive, and entirely lacking in luxury. Your tutor, the famously stern Aristotle, emphasizes moderation in all things, though the Macedonian court often ignores him when the sun goes down. But in the morning, discipline rules. You finish the meal quickly. It is not something to be savored or lingered over. There are no Yelp reviews for the palace kitchen, no one complaining that the barley was undercooked. You eat because you must. This diet is intentional. It's part of the agoge, the rigorous upbringing designed to turn boys into soldiers. You are being taught that luxury softens the body and the mind. If you can thrive on coarse barley and salty cheese in the cold dawn, you can endure the hardships of a military campaign. You stand, leaving the empty bowl and cup on the tray. The heavy meal provides a core of warmth in your stomach. Outside, you can hear the distant sounds of the barracks stirring, the sharp commands of officers, the collective movement of many feet on packed earth. The simplicity of your surroundings and the austerity of your diet are not signs of poverty. Macedonia is wealthy, rich in timber and gold mines. But that wealth is poured into the army, into weapons, into horses. Personal comfort is irrelevant. The resilience forged here, in these cold rooms, fueled by this simple, hearty food, is the foundation of the ambition that will soon shake the world. You are learning to endure, to find strength in simplicity, a lesson that will serve you well on the long, hungry roads of Asia. The memory of that cold Macedonian porridge now feels like a distant luxury. The long, hungry roads of Asia are no longer a future prospect. They are your reality. You are marching. Years have passed since your youth in Pella. You are now part of a vast, relentless machine, an army that has crossed the Hellespont and is carving its way through the Persian Empire. You are one of 10,000, or perhaps 50,000, souls moving as one body across a sun-scorched Anatolian plain. The world has been reduced to a few simple, overwhelming sensations. The first is the dust. It's a fine, pale powder kicked up by the sandals and hooves of the column, stretching for miles ahead of you and miles behind. It coats your skin, works its way into the weave of your tunic, and forms a gritty film on your teeth. The air tastes of it. It stings your eyes and dries your throat. The second sensation is the rhythm, the endless, hypnotic tramp of thousands of feet on the hard-packed earth. It's a sound that has become the background music to your life, a steady, percussive beat that you feel in your bones even when you stop. It's accompanied by the squeak and groan of leather straps, the jingle of bronze and iron equipment, and the low, constant hum of tired conversation. Occasionally, the braying of a mule cuts through the monotony. The sun is a merciless weight on your shoulders. You feel the sweat trickling down your back, the coarse wool of your tunic chafing your skin raw in a dozen places. You carry your life on your back, your shield, your spear or sarissa, a small pack with a bedroll, and most importantly, your rations. When the halt is finally called as the sun begins to dip towards the horizon, there is no grand mess tent, no simmering cauldrons of stew waiting for you. There is only what you carry and what the supply wagons distribute. Your commander, Alexander, understands that an army marches on its stomach, but he also values speed above all else. Luxury is weight, and weight is slow. So your diet is stripped down to the bare essentials of survival. You sit with your small unit, a group of men whose faces are as familiar to you as your own. You pull out your main source of calories. It's a biscuit, a form of military hardtack known as a paximadion. This is not a fluffy, warm piece of bread. It is a disk of barley or wheat flour, mixed with water and a little salt, and then baked twice until it is rock hard and utterly devoid of moisture. It is designed for longevity, not for pleasure. It can last for months, even years, without spoiling, impervious to mold and insects. Historians note that this kind of hard bread was a cornerstone of military logistics for centuries, from the Romans to the Age of Sail. You can't just bite into it. You would risk cracking a tooth. Instead, you break off a piece and drop it into your bronze cup. You pull out your water skin and pour a little water over it. Or, if you have any left, you might use some of the thin, sour wine issued as part of your rations. You let it soak, watching it slowly absorb the liquid and soften into a barely palatable mush. It tastes of stale flour and dust, the same taste you had for breakfast, and the same taste you will have for dinner tomorrow. To go with your biscuit mush, you have a piece of dried meat. This is likely pork or goat, cured with a heavy hand of salt. It's as tough as a leather strap, dark and stringy. You chew on it for a long time, the intense saltiness flooding your mouth, a welcome but harsh contrast to the blandness of the biscuit. It's a chore to eat, a workout for your jaw, but it is precious protein that your aching muscles desperately need. There are no Michelin stars awarded for jerky that could double as a building material. For flavor and for health, you have an onion or a few cloves of garlic. You peel the onion with your knife, the sharp, pungent aroma a welcome shock to your senses. You eat it raw, the crisp, fiery layers providing a burst of flavor that momentarily makes you forget the dust. Olives cured in brine are another staple, oily, salty, and calorie-dense. They are a perfect marching food. The most common drink, even more so than the wine, is a beverage called pasca. It is essentially a form of vinegar, made from wine that has gone sour, mixed with water and sometimes herbs. It sounds unappealing, and you certainly wouldn't order it at your local tavern today, but on the march, it is a godsend. It is incredibly effective at quenching thirst, the acidity cutting through the dryness in your mouth. It's also mildly antiseptic, making questionable water sources safer to drink. It's the ancient world's Gatorade, minus the focus groups and the high fructose corn syrup. Sometimes you get lucky. If the army camps near a river, you might have time to fish. If you pass through a fertile valley, you might be allowed to forage for wild greens, berries, or fruit. These small additions feel like a feast, a reminder that the world contains flavors beyond salt, flour, and dust. Scholars still debate the precise ratio of supplied grain to forated food in Alexander's army, acknowledging that this massive force had to live off the land to some degree, a practice that could be devastating for the local populations they passed. You look around at the men in your unit. They are all engaged in the same simple ritual, silently soaking their biscuits, gnawing on their dried meat. There is a quiet camaraderie in this shared hardship. The food is monotonous. The conditions are brutal, but you endure it together. You are part of something vast and historic, even if, in this moment, your entire world is contained in the simple act of making a piece of rock-hard bread soft enough to swallow. Your body is a testament to this diet. You are lean and hard, all excess fat burned away by the miles. You are stronger than you have ever been. Your resilience is not just physical, it is mental. You have learned to find satisfaction in a mouthful of water, to appreciate the sharp bite of a raw onion, as if it were a delicacy. As dusk settles, turning the sky to a deep, bruised purple, the campfires begin to glow, thousands of tiny sparks in the immense darkness. The day's march is over. The meager meal is finished. You will sleep on the hard ground, wrapped in your cloak, and in the morning you will do it all again. The empire is not being built on grand strategy alone. It is being built on this, on hard bread, salted meat, and the incredible, stubborn endurance of the human body. The memory of the dusty march fades as you find yourself in a different world, though the faces around you are the same. Tonight you are not a weary soldier gnawing on hardtack. Tonight you are a guest of the king. You are at a royal symposium. This is the fabled Macedonian drinking party, an institution that is part political theater, part war council, and part sheer, unadulterated revelry. You are reclining. You lie on your left side on a cushioned couch, or recline, propped up by your elbow. The room is large and filled with a hazy, flickering light from dozens of oil lamps. The air is thick with the scent of olive oil, roasted meat, fragrant herbs, and the sweet, heavy aroma of wine. It's a welcome change from the dust of the road, a sensory overload that feels both luxurious and slightly overwhelming. There are perhaps a dozen other men in the room, all close companions of Alexander, the inner circle of generals and advisors. Everyone is arranged on couches set around the perimeter of the room. This isn't a casual get-together. It's a highly structured event. Your position in the room, how close you are to the king, is a direct reflection of your current standing. A subtle shift in seating arrangements from one symposium to the next can signal a change in royal favor, and everyone notices. There's no seating chart app to check, just a tense, unspoken awareness of power dynamics. The first part of the evening is for eating. Servants, often captured slaves from previous campaigns, move silently through the room. They bring low tables and place them before each couch. The food arrives in courses, served on platters of silver and bronze. This is where the wealth of the army's plunder is on display. The meal begins with appetizers, small bowls of olives glistening with oil, cubes of sharp, crumbly cheese, a far cry from the hard, salty blocks you eat on the march. There are roasted chickpeas seasoned with herbs and plates of sliced radishes and cucumbers. The bread served here is leavened, soft, and white, a true luxury made from expensive wheat flour. You tear off a piece, its texture a revelation after weeks of rock-hard barley biscuits. The main courses arrive with a bit more ceremony. The centerpiece is often a whole roasted animal, a young goat or a wild boar, its skin crackling and dark. The smell is intoxicating. A servant carves the meat with a sharp knife, placing generous portions on your plate. It's tender and rich, flavored simply with salt, pepper, and perhaps rosemary or thyme. Alongside the roast, there are fish from a nearby river, grilled over charcoal until the skin is crisp, and served with a squeeze of lemon. There are also stews, bubbling in terracotta pots. A popular one is a savory lentil soup, thick and hearty, enriched with pieces of sausage and flavored with garlic and onions. You eat with your hands, using pieces of the soft bread to scoop up the stew and wipe your plate clean. The flavors are robust and honest, a more refined version of Macedonian comfort food. Historians often emphasize that even at a royal feast, the core of the cuisine remained relatively simple, focusing on the quality of the main ingredients rather than complex sauces. You eat your fill. This is a chance to replenish the calories burned on the march, to feel a sense of abundance after weeks of scarcity. But you also know that the eating portion of the evening is merely the prelude. Once the food is cleared away, the real event begins. The servants perform a libation, pouring a small amount of wine onto the floor as an offering to the gods. Then, the symposiarch, or master of the drinking, is chosen. Sometimes it's Alexander himself. Sometimes he appoints one of his generals. This person's job is to decide the strength of the wine for the evening. Huge craters, large bronze or ceramic bowls for mixing wine and water, are brought into the center of the room. The symposiarch declares the ratio. Perhaps tonight it will be a moderate 3 parts water to 1 part wine. Or, if the mood is celebratory, it might be a stronger 1-to-1 mix. Rarely, if ever, is it the unmixed wine of pure Macedonian tradition during a formal symposium, as some concession to Greek custom is expected. However, as the night wears on, this rule often gets forgotten. The wine is ladled from the crater into ornate drinking cups called kylixes. They are wide and shallow, with 2 handles designed to be held while reclining. You take your cup. The wine is from Thrace, a famously good vintage, dark and full-bodied. Even mixed, it is potent. Now, the entertainment and the conversation begin. A musician might be brought in to play the lyre, a soft, stringed instrument that provides a gentle background melody. Sometimes there are poets who recite epic verses from Homer, stories of Achilles and Odysseus, heroes that Alexander consciously models himself after. But the main event is the conversation. This is where policy is debated, where strategies are forged, and where loyalties are tested. Alexander uses these gatherings to gauge the mood of his commanders, to reward them with his attention, and to challenge them intellectually. He might pose a philosophical question, sparking a debate that lasts for an hour. He might ask for opinions on the next stage of the campaign. The wine loosens tongues. The formal deference of the daytime gives way to a more boisterous, sometimes confrontational atmosphere. It's a high-stakes environment. A clever comment can win you favor, but a drunken, foolish one can be disastrous. The line between comradely banter and dangerous insult is incredibly thin. You have to navigate this social minefield carefully, measuring your words and your wine intake. There are no HR departments to file a complaint with if a general threatens you with a spear because you took the last piece of roasted goat. As the night deepens, the formality dissolves. The lyre player is replaced by a flute girl, whose music is faster and more frenetic. The conversation becomes louder, punctuated by laughter and shouting. Men might rise to give impassioned speeches, their words slurring slightly. Some might challenge each other to drinking games like katabos, where you have to flick the dregs of your wine from your cup to hit a target across the room. This is the famous Macedonian capacity for drink in full display. It is a form of bonding, a shared release from the immense pressures of the campaign. But it is also a source of great danger. It is in these drunken, volatile settings that some of the darkest events of Alexander's reign will occur, where friendships will be shattered and loyalties betrayed in a fit of wine-fueled rage. You see the potential for it simmering just beneath the surface, the warrior ethos clashing with the immense power and ego in the room. For now, however, you recline, sipping your wine, listening to the king hold forth on the future. You are fed, you are warm, and you are at the very center of power. It is a dizzying, intoxicating experience, a world away from the cold reality of the march. You are witnessing the complex human engine that drives this empire forward, fueled by ambition, loyalty, and vast quantities of wine. The symposium, with its familiar Macedonian flavors, now feels like a memory from another lifetime. You have moved deeper into the heart of a fallen empire. The Battle of Gaugamela is a recent, stunning victory. The Persian king, Darius III, is in flight, and the gates of the legendary cities of Babylon and Susa have been thrown open to you. You are no longer just a soldier. You are a conqueror, and you are about to taste the spoils. You walk through the cavernous storerooms of a Persian satrap's palace. The air itself is different here. It's not the sharp, clean air of the Macedonian mountains or the dusty air of the Anatolian plains. It is heavy, thick with the scent of 1,000 unknown spices, perfumes, and exotic goods that have been gathered from every corner of the vast Persian Empire. The smell is a complex symphony of sweet, spicy, and floral notes that is almost dizzying. It's the scent of immense wealth and ancient trade routes. Your diet has been transformed overnight. The simple, utilitarian fare of the march, the hard biscuits and salted meat, has been replaced by a bounty so extravagant it borders on the surreal. The royal kitchens are now staffed by Persian chefs, men and women who have spent their lives mastering a cuisine of incredible subtlety and complexity. For breakfast, the barley porridge is gone. Instead, you are served a soft, fluffy flatbread, baked in a clay oven until it puffs up. It's warm and pliable, perfect for scooping up a dish of what the locals call masto khair, a thick, creamy yogurt mixed with chopped cucumbers, walnuts, and dried mint. It's cool, refreshing, and utterly delicious. Alongside it, there are bowls filled with a treasure you have only heard stories about: pistachios. You crack open the pale shells to reveal the vibrant green nut within. The flavor is rich, buttery, and slightly sweet. The main meals are a revelation. The Persian approach to meat is entirely different from the straightforward Macedonian roast. Here, meat, usually lamb or chicken, is often stewed for hours with fruits and nuts. You are served a dish where tender pieces of lamb have been slow-cooked with apricots and plums, creating a sauce that is a perfect balance of savory and sweet. It's seasoned with cinnamon and saffron, a spice so precious it's worth more than its weight in gold. The vibrant yellow color of the saffron stains the rice it is served with, a long-grain variety that is fluffy and fragrant. Unlike the sticky, short-grain rice you might have occasionally encountered before. One of the most shocking discoveries for your Macedonian palate is the sheer variety of fruits. You had known apples, pears, figs, and grapes. Here, you are introduced to a dazzling array of new tastes and textures. You bite into a pomegranate for the first time, the tough, leathery skin hiding a jewel box of glistening red seeds. The taste is a burst of sweet and tart juice that explodes in your mouth. You try a quince, a fruit that looks like a lumpy pear. Raw, it is hard and astringent, but when cooked down with honey, it becomes a fragrant, rosy pink delicacy. There are peaches, so soft and juicy they drip down your chin, and melons with a sweetness so intense it feels like a dessert. You explore the palace gardens, which are as much a source of food as they are a place of beauty. You see date palms, heavy with sticky brown fruit that taste like pure caramel. There are almond trees, fig trees of a dozen varieties, and grapevines trained to grow on trellises, producing grapes not for wine, but for eating fresh or drying into raisins. This is a level of horticultural sophistication that makes the simple orchards of Macedonia seem rustic and wild. Of course, the wine flows as freely as ever, but now, alongside the robust Thracian reds, you are introduced to new vintages from the Zagros Mountains. The most famous is the wine from Shiraz, a city renowned for its vineyards for centuries. It is dark, rich, and has a spicy character that you've never tasted before. The Persians, at least in their formal court culture, were more like the Greeks, typically mixing their wine with water. But Alexander and his Macedonians continue their hard-drinking traditions, a cultural habit that both fascinates and appalls their new subjects. This sudden immersion in luxury has a profound effect on the army. For some, it is a dream come true, the just reward for years of hardship. They revel in it, eagerly adopting the softer Persian clothing, the perfumed oils, and the rich food. There's no more need to forage for bitter greens when you can have a salad of fresh herbs drizzled with olive oil and pomegranate molasses. But for others, especially the older, more conservative Macedonian veterans, this is a deeply unsettling development. They look at the silken cushions, the elaborate dishes, and the fawning servants, and they see a dangerous decadence. They mutter that the king is going soft, that he is being seduced by the very culture he conquered. They see him adopting Persian dress and court customs, and they fear he is forgetting where he came from. The food becomes a symbol of this cultural clash. To them, a simple roast goat is honest and masculine. A complex stew with apricots and cinnamon is foreign and effeminate. Historians call this process Orientalization, and it was a major source of tension and conflict within Alexander's inner circle. This is a classic, "We're not in Kansas anymore" moment for the Macedonian old guard, and they are not pleased with the new menu. You experience this tension yourself. One night, you might dine with a group of young officers who are eagerly trying every new dish, laughing as they attempt to eat a tricky pomegranate without making a mess. The next, you might sit with a grizzled veteran who pushes away a plate of chicken with walnuts and demands a simple piece of grilled meat, grumbling about how the army is losing its edge. Alexander himself seems to walk a line between these two worlds. He enjoys the luxury, using the grand Persian feasts as a way to display his power and wealth to his new subjects. But he also continues to train, to ride, and to lead from the front, as if to prove that the rich food has not dulled his warrior spirit. You are living in a moment of incredible fusion. Two powerful cultures are colliding, and the first point of contact is the dinner table. You are tasting not just new flavors, but the complexities of empire building. The sweet and sour sauce on your plate mirrors the sweet victory and the sour resentment brewing in the army. You are learning that conquering a territory is one thing, ruling its people and its pantry is another challenge entirely. The delightful haze of Persian feasts, with their pomegranates and pistachios, begins to feel like a distant dream. The army is on the move again, pushing ever eastward into the vast, unknown territories of Bactria and Sogdiana, modern-day Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. And with every mile you travel further from the familiar supply centers of Babylon and Susa, a harsh reality reasserts itself with crushing weight. The mundane, unglamorous, and absolutely critical challenge of logistics. You are no longer a guest in a conquered palace. You are once again a cog in the massive, hungry machine of the army, and you are beginning to understand that the true, unseen hero of this entire campaign is not a brave soldier or a clever general, but the quartermaster. He is the one who fights a constant, desperate battle against distance, terrain, and the ravenous appetite of 100,000 men. You stand on a high pass in the Hindu Kush mountains. The air is thin and bitterly cold, a stark contrast to the balmy climate of Mesopotamia. Below you, the supply train snakes its way through the valley, a line of mules, camels, and wagons that seems to stretch to the horizon. It's a slow, vulnerable caterpillar, the lifeline of the entire army. Watching it, you realize the sheer, mind-boggling scale of the operation. An army of this size consumes a staggering amount of food every single day. Historians have tried to calculate the numbers, and they are immense. We're talking about tons of grain, thousands of animals for meat, and countless gallons of water and wine every single day. You can't just carry it all with you. Alexander's genius for logistics was not in having an impossibly large baggage train. In fact, he famously kept it as lean as possible, but in his ability to plan, to anticipate, and to procure supplies along the march. You see this system in action. Before the army enters a new region, scouts are sent ahead. Their job is not just to look for enemy forces, but to map out the resources of the land. They identify towns with granaries, find pasture land for the horses and baggage animals, and locate springs and rivers. Agents are sent to negotiate, or more often to compel, local leaders to sell or provide supplies. Sometimes, entire depots are established in advance, massive stockpiles of food and fodder placed at strategic points along the planned route. But here, in the barren, hostile mountains, that system is breaking down. The villages are small and poor, their granaries barely sufficient for their own needs. The terrain is brutal. Wagons break their axles on the rocky paths. Mules slip and fall from narrow cliffside trails, their precious cargo of grain tumbling into the abyss below. The sound of a splintering wheel or the cry of a falling animal is a sound of pure dread. The ration is cut. The soft Persian bread is a ghost of a memory. The hardtack biscuit, your old, unwelcome friend from the march across Anatolia, is back. But now, even that is in short supply. Your daily portion is smaller. You chew it even more slowly, trying to make it last, trying to trick your stomach into feeling full. The mood of the army sours with its stomach. Men become irritable. Arguments break out over small things. The camaraderie forged in shared hardship frays when that hardship turns to genuine hunger. You eye your neighbor's portion, a flicker of resentment in your heart if it looks even slightly larger than yours. There's no modern concept of supply chain management software to optimize this. It's all done through human effort, relentless counting, and the constant fear of running out. You learn to eat things you would have never considered before. The army's butchers are now followed by groups of soldiers hoping to get a share of the offal, the liver, the heart, the intestines, parts of the animal that might have been discarded in times of plenty. You boil them into a thin, greasy soup that is nonetheless a source of vital warmth and protein. Foraging becomes a desperate necessity, not a pleasant diversion. You scan the barren landscape for any sign of green. You might find a tough, bitter root, which you boil for hours to make it edible. You learn to identify the few hardy plants that grow at this altitude. Some are surprisingly nutritious. Others are barely better than eating grass. This is the dark side of living off the land, a process that is often romanticized. For the soldiers, it was a constant, gnawing uncertainty. For the local population, it was often a catastrophe, as a locust swarm of hungry soldiers stripped their lands bare. Alexander is aware of the plunging morale. He shares the hardship, at least symbolically. He is seen eating the same coarse food as his men, and he famously, during a later march through a desert, refused a helmet full of water because there was not enough for everyone. It is a masterful piece of leadership, a way of showing his soldiers that he is suffering with them. And it works, mostly. Your resentment towards the situation is tempered by a fierce loyalty to the man who endures it with you. But the real solution is not symbolic gestures. It is relentless, forward motion. The only way to solve the supply crisis is to get out of the mountains and into the fertile lands on the other side. The entire campaign becomes a race against starvation. One day, you come across a small, isolated community in a high-altitude valley. They cultivate a crop you've never seen before, rye. It's a hardy grain that can withstand the cold. The army procures their entire harvest. That night, for the first time in weeks, you eat a bread made from dark, heavy rye flour. It's dense and has a slightly sour taste, but it is the most satisfying meal you have had in months. It's a small, quirky detail of history. The first encounter of this Mediterranean army with a northern European grain. This experience teaches you a profound, visceral lesson about history. You understand that empires are not just built on brilliant tactics and heroic charges. They are built on a foundation of grain. They are held together by the sinews of supply lines. The great drama of conquest is underpinned by the boring, repetitive, and absolutely essential task of counting sacks of flour and watering mules. It's a story of human resilience, not just in the face of the enemy, but in the face of an empty stomach. The clanging of swords is exciting, but the quiet, desperate work of filling the pantry is what truly decides the fate of nations. You have survived the hunger of the mountains. The race against starvation was won, and the army descended from the icy peaks of the Hindu Kush into a new world. You have crossed the Indus River. You are in Section 6 India. The very air you breathe feels different. It is thick, humid, and heavy with the scent of damp earth, blooming the grueling memory of the Hindu Kush. With its thin air and emptier stomachs, flowers you cannot name, and the pungent, tantalizing aroma of unfamiliar spices. The transition is as jarring as the begins to recede. You have descended from the roof of the world and crossed into a new, impossibly vibrant land. You are in the Indus Valley, in what is now modern-day Pakistan and northern India. The contrast with one from Macedonia to Persia, but even more profound. If Persia was a variation on a theme you understood, a different kind of empire with different food, but still rooted in familiar concepts of grain, livestock, and wine. India is the stark, barren mountains you just left is breathtaking. This land is overwhelmingly green, humid, and teeming with life. Something else entirely. It is a new symphony of flavors, a culinary landscape so alien that it challenges your very definition of what food. The air is thick and wet, clinging to your skin. It smells of damp earth, blooming flowers you cannot name, and it is. Your first encounter with this new world comes in a local market near the army's camp. It's a riot complex web of spices that are entirely different from the ones you encountered in Persia. The sounds are a constant chorus of unfamiliar of color and sound. The people are different, their clothing is different, and the products piled high on wicker mats are of birds and insects. It is a sensory assault, a world that feels more ancient and more alien than any you have yet catalog of wonders. You see mountains of a strange, white, fluffy grain. This is a new kind of rice, far encountered. And the food is a whole new universe of challenges and wonders. You make camp near a different from the Persian long grain. It cooks up soft and slightly sticky, the perfect vehicle for the complex sauces and tributary of the great Indus River. The local rulers, after some initial fierce resistance, have submitted to Alexander. Part curries that form the heart of Indian cuisine, and the spices. In Persia, you were amazed by saffron, and of their tribute is to supply the army with provisions. The wagons roll in, not with the familiar sacks of barley or cinnamon. Here, the variety is bewildering. A merchant offers you a taste of a dish, a simple stew of vegetables and lentils wheat, but with baskets of strange and wonderful things. The first thing you notice is the rice. This isn't the long, but the flavor is an explosion in your mouth. You taste the earthy warmth of turmeric, the citrusy notes of coriander, seed grain, fluffy rice of Persia. This is a different variety, perhaps a shorter grain, cooked in a way that is. The smoky depth of cumin, and a fiery heat that spreads across your tongue, making your eyes water and your forehead bead new to you. It's often steamed until perfectly tender and serves as the foundation for everything else. The local cooks, employed with sweat. This heat comes from chili peppers, which are not yet in India, but from other native peppers and spices like black now in the army's sprawling kitchens. Prepare vegetables you have never seen. There are long, green pods that they pepper and ginger. This is a level of spiciness you have never experienced. Your Macedonian palate, accustomed to the simple call by a local name, which you would recognize as okra. When cooked, it has a unique, slightly slimy texture that flavors of salt, garlic, and thyme, is in a state of shock. There are new fruits and vegetables everywhere some of your comrades find off-putting, but you find strangely satisfying. There are round, purple vegetables, eggplants. You see a large, lumpy green fruit called a jackfruit. You try a piece, and its texture is strangely which they roast directly in the coals of a fire until the skin is blackened and the inside is smoky and soft. But the most dramatic change is the use of spices. The Persian use of cinnamon or saffron was about adding a layer of meatiness. Its flavor a bizarre and not unpleasant mix of pineapple and banana. You are introduced to the mango, the king of sweet or aromatic fragrance. Here, the spices are the heart of the dish. They are powerful, pungent, and often hot of fruits. You bite into its soft, non-fibrous flesh, and the taste is a revelation, a perfect honeyed sweetness with a complex floral aroma. It is so good that it feels like a divine gift. You are served a stew of lentils, similar in concept to the Macedonian lentil soup you love. But the flavor is a wonder that you lived your whole life without ever tasting one. There's no Yelp review for the universe, but if explosion in your mouth. It's seasoned with ginger, a knobby, pale root that has a spicy almost there. You'd give the mango 5 stars. One of the most significant discoveries is a plant the locals perfume like heat. There's turmeric, which stains the whole dish a vibrant, earthy yellow. And then there is the call saccharum. They crush its long, fibrous stalks to extract a sweet juice, which they then boil down chili. Of course, historically, chili peppers are from the Americas and were not present in India at this time. What to create hard, brown crystals? It is sugar. Not the honey or fruit syrups you are used to, but pure you are likely experiencing is the intense heat of black pepper or the long pepper, a native Indian spice that was a major concentrated sweetness. For you, this is a powerful drug, a luxury beyond comprehension. You taste a piece of a driver of ancient trade. A cook grinds these small, dark peppercorns into a powder and adds it liberally to the stew. The first spoonful is a shock. It's a sharp, piercing heat that floods your mouth, makes your eyes sweetmeat made from chickpea flour, clarified butter, ghee, and this new sugar. It's intensely sweet, rich, and fragrant with cardamom. The concept of a dedicated dessert. A course of food designed solely for sweetness water and brings a flush to your skin. For a Macedonian palate accustomed to salt, garlic, and thyme, this is and pleasure is a new and exciting one. But not everything is a pleasant discovery. The sheer spiciness of the food entirely new category of taste. Some soldiers spit it out, complaining that the food is poison. But you, perhaps more, is a challenge. Many of your fellow soldiers, particularly the older ones, find it overwhelming and even unpleasant. They complain adventurous. Take another spoonful. Beneath the heat, you begin to discover other flavors: cumin, coriander, cardamom. Of stomach troubles, their digestive systems rebelling against the onslaught of new bacteria and fiery spices. They long for a simple piece of roasted, complex, layered taste that is utterly addictive. There are no online food bloggers to tell you this is a 5-star culinary lamb and a cup of unadulterated wine. The religious customs surrounding food are also a source of confusion. You experience only the verdict of your own watering eyes and tingling tongue. The fruits are also a source of wonder. You learn that many of the local people do not eat beef. Their cattle are considered sacred. A concept that is utterly foreign are given a smooth, yellow-skinned fruit, oblong and heavy. A soldier shows you how to slice it open, to a Macedonian who sees a cow as a source of meat, milk, and leather. The prevalence of vegetarianism is revealing a bright orange flesh and a large, flat pit. This is your first mango. The flavor is a revelation, and also a new idea. You encounter entire communities who subsist on a diet of lentils, dal, rice, vegetables, and densely sweet, slightly floral, with a texture so soft and juicy it dissolves on your tongue. It is, you decide, the king bread, believing it to be a path to spiritual purity. While your army has certainly experienced meatless days out of necessity, the of all fruits, then there is the strangest discovery of all, honey from reeds. You hear stories of idea of choosing not to eat meat for philosophical reasons is a novel concept. Historians note that this encounter was a significant a reed that grows in this land, which, when crushed, produces a sweet, granular powder. You are given a small moment of cultural exchange, where Greek and Indian ideas about diet, philosophy, and religion began a long, slow process of mingling bowl of it. It's crystalline, white, and impossibly sweet. This is your first encounter with refined sugar, likely. Alexander, ever curious and adaptable, encourages his men to try the local fare. He hosts feasts where Indian rulers processed from sugar cane. For a world that has only known the sweetness of honey and fruit, this is a magical substance. You sprinkle a little on a piece of flatbread, and the taste is a pure, clean sweetness unlike anything you've served their finest dishes alongside Macedonian favorites. It's a strange fusion menu. A spicy lentil stew might be served next ever experienced. Scholars confirm that Alexander's army was one of the first European groups to encounter and document sugar cane, to a haunch of roast goat, soft, fluffy naan bread, baked by slapping it against the inside discovery that would, over many centuries, change the world's diet. However, not all of the Indian bounty of a tandoor oven is used to scoop up both Greek-style olive dips and Indian vegetable curries. Is a delight. The climate itself presents a new set of challenges. The monsoon season arrives. A relentless, daily down the drink of choice here is not always wine. You are introduced to fermented beverages made from rice and palm sap. You also that turns the entire landscape into a sea of mud. The humidity is oppressive. Food spoils quickly. Your woolen Macedonians see people drinking a beverage made by boiling leaves in water, a primitive form of tea, though it has not yet become the cloak, so useful in the cold mountains, is now a heavy, sodden, mildewed burden. Wounds fester in the damp air. Strange fevers and diseases, to which your bodies have no immunity, sweep through the camp. Major cultural force it will be in later centuries. The most common and welcome drink, however, is a yogurt-based beverage called lassi, sometimes salted, sometimes sweetened with fruit and sugar. In the oppressive heat and humidity of the Punjab, and then there are the things you are warned not to eat. The land is full of snakes, some of them. A cool, refreshing glass of mango lassi is more valuable than the finest wine. This culinary adventure is a microcosm of the deadly. Your comrades tell stories of men bitten while foraging. Certain plants are known to be poisonous. the water and stagnant entire Indian campaign. It is exciting, disorienting, and full of unexpected challenges. You are discovering not just new pools can cause violent illness. You learn to rely on local guides to distinguish safe food from dangerous food. A humbling experience foods, but new ways of thinking about the world. You are learning that your own culture, which you considered the pinnacle for a conquering army. The campaign in India is the high water mark of your journey, but it is also the breaking of civilization, is just one of many, with its own unique strengths and blind spots. As you sit by the point, the army, exhausted by years of fighting, battered by the climate, and intimidated by tales of the giant army's campfire, eating a piece of spicy, tandoor-cooked chicken and a mango for dessert, you feel a profound sense of and war elephants of the kingdoms further east, finally refuses to go on. At the Hyphasis River, the homesick and distance, you are impossibly far from home. The flavors in your mouth are a constant, delicious reminder of that fact weary veterans mutiny. They have tasted enough of the world. They want to go home. Alexander, enraged and heartbroken, is forced to turn back. As you prepare for the long journey home, you take one last look at this strange, vibrant. The journey has changed you, not just by hardening your body, but by expanding your palate and your mind. You are tasting the very edge of the known world, and it is hotter, sweeter, and more complex than you ever could have imagined. Land. Your diet has been expanded in ways you could never have imagined. The spicy, vibrant flavors of India are now a bittersweet memory, a story to be told and retold on the long, arduous journey back west. The mutiny at the Hyphasis River was a turning point, the moment the relentless forward momentum of the conquest finally broke. The return journey is long and brutal, marked by a disastrous march through the Gedrosian desert that costs thousands of lives. But you survive. Alexander survives. And the great project of the empire, though its expansion has halted, is not over. It is merely entering a new phase, consolidation. You are no longer on the march. You are standing on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea at the mouth of the Nile River in Egypt. The air here is different yet again. It's warm, but it's a dry heat, and it carries the salty tang of the sea and the green, papery scent of the Nile Delta. The sun is bright, the sky a vast, uninterrupted expanse of blue. This is the site Alexander has chosen for his most ambitious and enduring legacy. He is not just conquering here, he is building. You are witnessing the birth of a city, Alexandria. You stand on what is, for now, a dusty, windswept stretch of land between the sea and a lake. But Alexander sees more than that. He walks the ground himself, with his architects and engineers, tracing the path of future avenues and the locations of future temples. There are no bulldozers, no laser levels, no computer-aided design. The king himself, so the story goes, takes a bag of barley flour, that same humble grain that has fueled his entire journey, and uses it to mark out the grid of the city on the ground. It's a beautifully symbolic act. The food that sustained the conquest is now being used to sketch the blueprint for a new era of civilization. Birds fly down and eat the barley, which his seers interpret as a good omen. This city will one day feed the world, and it will. You are standing on what will become the breadbasket of the Roman Empire. The land of Egypt, renewed each year by the predictable, life-giving flood of the Nile, is incredibly fertile. The wheat that grows here is legendary. This city is being built not just as a strategic port or a military outpost, but as a commercial hub, designed to control the vast agricultural wealth of Egypt and ship it across the Mediterranean. The founding of a city from scratch is a monumental undertaking. It is, in its own way, as complex a logistical challenge as feeding an army on the march. First, you need workers, thousands of them, soldiers from the army, local Egyptian laborers, and skilled Greek artisans are all put to the task. This massive workforce needs to be housed and, more importantly, fed. Your diet changes once again. The staples of Egypt are bread, beer, and onions. The bread is made from the fine Egyptian wheat, producing a lighter, softer loaf than the coarse barley breads of Macedonia. You eat it every day, accompanied by a handful of radishes or spring onions. The onions here are famously sweet and mild, a staple of the Egyptian diet for millennia. The drink of choice is not wine, but beer. The Egyptians have been brewing beer for thousands of years, and they are masters of the art. It's a thick, hearty, nutritious brew, often called liquid bread. It's less alcoholic than your Macedonian wine and serves as both a drink and a source of calories for the laboring masses. You drink it from a simple clay cup. It's cloudy, slightly sour, and deeply satisfying after a long day of labor under the Egyptian sun. There's no fancy branding, no craft brewery tour. This is beer as it was meant to be, a cheap, reliable source of nutrition. For protein, there is the bounty of the Nile. You eat a great deal of fish, netted from the river and the nearby lake, salted and dried to preserve it, or grilled fresh over open fires. There are also birds, ducks, and geese, hunted in the sprawling marshes of the delta. This is the diet of the builders. It is simple, plentiful, and repetitive. But as the city begins to take shape, as the first stone foundations are laid and the outlines of great public buildings become visible, a new class of person begins to arrive. These are not soldiers or laborers, but merchants, scholars, and administrators, and they bring their tastes with them. The new harbor, one of the finest in the world, begins to fill with ships. They come from Greece, from Phoenicia, from Italy, and from the coastal cities of Anatolia. And they bring with them the tastes of the wider Mediterranean world. Suddenly, amphorae of Greek olive oil are being unloaded onto the docks. Barrels of wine from the Aegean islands arrive, a welcome taste of home for the Greek soldiers and settlers. You see crates of dried figs from Attica and jars of honey from the hills of Crete. Alexandria is designed from its inception to be a cosmopolitan city, a crossroads of cultures, and you can see this happening in its nascent food markets. An Egyptian farmer selling onions and garlic might have a stall next to a Greek merchant selling olive oil and wine. A fisherman from the Nile Delta sells his tilapia next to a trader whose ship has just brought in barrels of salted mackerel from the Black Sea. This is Alexander's vision made real. He doesn't just want a Greek city in Egypt. He wants a city that blends the best of both worlds, creating something new and powerful. He encourages his soldiers to marry local women, a policy that causes some grumbling but also begins the slow process of cultural fusion. You see it in the homes that are being built. A Macedonian veteran might live with his Egyptian wife. In their kitchen, you might find a Greek-style stew simmering on the fire but seasoned with Egyptian herbs and served alongside Egyptian-style beer. So before this great story continues, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're enjoying our journey together. Your support means the world. You watch as a new legacy is planted, not just in stone, but in the habits of daily life. The city is a living organism, and its food is the clearest expression of its hybrid identity. The memory of the hardtack and the empty stomachs in the mountains makes this abundance feel like a miracle. You are no longer just consuming the spoils of war. You are participating in the creation of a new center of the world. Alexander will not live to see his city completed. His journey will end in Babylon just a few years later. But the seed he plants here, on this dusty stretch of coast, will grow into something magnificent. He is founding more than just a city. He is planting a legacy, a beacon of trade, culture, and knowledge that will shine for 1,000 years. And it all began with a handful of barley flour, sketching a dream of the future on the sands of Egypt. The dream sketched in barley flour has blossomed into a reality more magnificent than you could have ever imagined. Centuries have passed in the blink of an eye. The world has changed. Alexander's empire shattered shortly after his death, carved up by his generals into successor kingdoms. The Ptolemies, descended from one of his closest companions, ruled Egypt for 300 years, making Alexandria their glittering capital. And now they too are gone. The last Ptolemaic ruler, Cleopatra, is a legend, and Egypt is a province of a new, even larger empire, Rome. You are walking the streets of Roman Alexandria in the 4th century CE. The city is no longer a construction site. It is a metropolis, one of the largest and most vibrant cities in the entire world, second only to Rome itself. The air is still scented with the sea and the distant Nile, but now those smells are overlaid with 1,000 others. The aroma of baking bread from countless bakeries, the sharp tang of spices from the markets, the scent of incense drifting from 100 temples, churches, and synagogues, and the unmistakable, pervasive smell of 1,000,000 people living in close quarters. You are no longer a soldier or a builder. You are simply a resident, an observer, carried along by the bustling river of humanity that flows through the city's grand avenues. The streets themselves are a marvel. The main thoroughfare, the Canopic Way, is a wide, colonnaded street that runs the length of the city. It is paved with stone, and it is crowded from dawn until dusk. You see people from every corner of the known world. Egyptians in their simple linen tunics, Greeks in their more formal robes, stern-faced Roman officials in their heavy togas, Jewish merchants with their distinctive prayer shawls, dark-skinned Nubians from the south, and even the occasional silk-clad trader from the far-off lands of India or China. This is the city as a melting pot, the ultimate fulfillment of Alexander's cosmopolitan vision. And nowhere is this more evident than in the food. The simple diet of the city's founders has evolved into a complex and dizzying cuisine. You stop at a street-side stall. The vendor is selling a food that has become a staple of the city's working class. It is a flatbread, similar to the ones you knew, but it is split open and filled with a paste made from fava beans, mashed with olive oil, garlic, and lemon juice. This is an early version of fol medames, a dish that is still a cornerstone of Egyptian cuisine today. It's cheap, it's filling, and it's delicious. You buy one. The bread is warm, the bean paste is savory and tangy, and it is the perfect food to eat while walking. There are no health inspectors to give this stall a letter grade. You just have to trust the long line of customers and the smell of the food. As you walk, you pass by bakeries where a stunning variety of breads are on display. There is the coarse, dark bread for the poor, but there is also fine, white leavened bread for the wealthy, some of it sweetened with honey or studded with dried fruit. You pass cookshops, the fast food restaurants of the ancient world, where large pots of lentil stew, bean soup, or simple vegetable and fish broths are kept simmering all day. For a small coin, you can get a hot, nourishing meal. This is essential in a city where most people live in cramped apartment blocks or insulae, which often lack proper kitchens. You wander into the great food market, the Emporium. The sights and smells are overwhelming. The bounty of the Nile is on full display. Mountains of wheat, barley, and lentils. Piles of onions, garlic, leeks, and cabbages. But alongside these local staples are goods from across the entire Roman Empire and beyond. Amphorae of wine from Italy and Gaul are stacked next to jars of olive oil from Spain and Greece. There are barrels of salted fish from the Black Sea and wheels of hard cheese from the mountains of Sicily. In one corner of the market, you find the spice merchants. This is the legacy of the trade routes Alexander helped to secure. The scent is intoxicating. You see sacks of black pepper from India, a luxury, but now common enough to be used by any moderately wealthy family. There are sticks of cinnamon from Sri Lanka, cloves from the islands of Indonesia, and ginger from the east. These spices, once a source of wonder to Alexander's army, are now commodities, traded in bulk in the greatest port of the Mediterranean. The city is a paradise for scholars, and its intellectual life is as rich and varied as its markets. This is, after all, the city of the great library, but it is also a city of deep divisions. The wealth and luxury of the elite exist alongside crushing poverty. The diverse population, once a source of strength, is now a source of constant tension. Different ethnic and religious groups live in their own quarters, and rivalries often spill over into street brawls and riots. You see this tension play out even in the food. A devout Jewish family will only buy meat from a butcher who follows their specific dietary laws. A new Christian community might fast on certain days, avoiding meat and rich foods, while their pagan neighbors are celebrating a festival with a great feast. Historians often point to Alexandria as a prime example of the religious and social turmoil that characterized the late Roman Empire. The city that was a beacon of intellectual light was also a cauldron of sectarian conflict. You walk past a tavern. The sound of raucous laughter and the smell of spilled wine pour out into the street. Inside, Roman soldiers might be drinking alongside Greek sailors and Egyptian laborers. For a moment, the divisions are forgotten in a shared love of cheap wine and companionship. But these moments of unity feel increasingly fragile. As evening falls, you find yourself near the harbor. The great lighthouse, the Pharos, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, is being lit. Its great beam, magnified by a massive polished bronze mirror, sweeps across the water, a guide for sailors and a symbol of the city's power and ingenuity. You sit on the stone quay, eating a simple meal of bread, olives, and cheese that you bought in the market. You watch the ships coming and going, their sails catching the last light of the setting sun. Each ship is a thread in the vast tapestry of trade and culture that makes up this city. This is the world that Alexander built, not through his own direct rule, but through the irresistible force of the idea he unleashed. A world where cultures could meet, mingle, and create something new. The city is noisy, chaotic, and dangerous. It smells of sewage as much as it smells of spice. But it is also alive, a testament to the enduring human drive to connect, to trade, to learn, and to build. It is a scholar's paradise and a merchant's dream, all built on the fertile mud of the Nile and the visionary ambition of a long-dead Macedonian king. The vibrant, chaotic energy of the Alexandrian streets fades into a background hum as you turn your steps away from the bustling harbor and towards the heart of the city's intellectual life. You are heading for the Bruchion, the royal quarter, a vast complex of palaces, gardens, and temples that has been the center of power and learning in Alexandria for centuries. Your destination within this district is the most famous institution of the ancient world, the museum, and its legendary daughter, the Great Library. You pass through a gateway, and the noise of the city immediately softens. Here, within the walls of the museum complex, the air is calmer. You walk along shaded colonnades, past manicured gardens where fountains murmur peacefully. The scent of flowers and damp earth replaces the smell of the market. This is a sanctuary, a space deliberately set apart from the hustle of ordinary life, dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge. The museum, or Shrine of the Muses, is not a museum in the modern sense of a place to display artifacts. It is a research institute, the first of its kind in history, founded by the very first Ptolemaic king. It is a community of scholars, scientists, poets, and philosophers, all supported by a generous state stipend. Their only job is to study, to write, to debate, and to push the boundaries of human understanding. They are given free board, lodging, and are exempt from taxes. There's no pressure to get likes or subscribers on their latest treatise on geometry. Their only key performance indicator is knowledge itself. You feel the weight of history here. This is where Euclid wrote his Elements, the foundational text of geometry for the next 2,000 years. It is where Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the Earth with astonishing accuracy, using little more than sticks, shadows, and brilliant reasoning. It is where Claudius Ptolemy mapped the stars and developed a model of the cosmos that would dominate Western thought until Copernicus. The scholars you see strolling through the gardens or sitting in quiet contemplation are the inheritors of this incredible legacy. They are dressed in simple Greek robes, their faces etched with the concentration of deep thought. They argue in low, intense voices about the nature of the soul, the meaning of a line from Homer, or a problem in theoretical mathematics. But the heart of the museum, its most famous component, is the library. The original Great Library, which may have housed up to 500,000 scrolls, was located here in the palace complex. By this time in the late 4th century, it has a complicated history. The main collection suffered a fire during Julius Caesar's civil war centuries ago, and subsequent conflicts and budget cuts have diminished its former glory. Scholars still fiercely debate how much of the original library survived, and when the final destruction occurred. It wasn't a single, cataclysmic event like in the movies, but a long, slow decline. A death by 1,000 cuts from neglect, fire, and political turmoil. What remains, and what is now the primary center of scholarship, is the daughter library, housed in the nearby temple complex of the Serapeum. But the principle is the same. You enter the hall that serves as the main repository for the scrolls. The sight, even in its diminished state, is awe-inspiring. The room is vast. Along the walls are countless niches, or armaria, and in each niche are stacked dozens, even hundreds of papyrus scrolls. Each scroll is a book. The air is filled with the dry, slightly sweet, papery scent of ancient knowledge. It's the smell of history itself. You see librarians or bibliothecarii carefully moving about, their sandals silent on the stone floor. They are retrieving scrolls for scholars or meticulously copying worn-out texts to ensure their survival. Each scroll is a fragile treasure. Papyrus is brittle. It is susceptible to moisture, insects, and the simple wear and tear of being unrolled and re-rolled. The act of copying is a sacred duty, the only way to preserve the words of the past for the future. You see a scribe at a wooden desk, a fresh roll of papyrus before him. He has an old, battered scroll open, and he is painstakingly copying the Greek text, letter by letter, using a reed pen and ink made from soot and gum. It is slow, methodical work, requiring immense concentration. There is no copy-paste function, no digital backup in the cloud. The survival of Aristotle's philosophy or Sophocles' plays depends entirely on the steady hand and sharp eye of men like this. You browse the tags or silly boy that hang from the ends of the scrolls, identifying their contents. The sheer range of subjects is staggering. There is poetry, Homer, Hesiod, Pindar. There is drama, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides. There is philosophy, Plato, Aristotle, the Stoics, the Epicureans. There is history, Herodotus, Thucydides. And there is science, treatises on medicine by Hippocrates and Galen, works on astronomy, engineering, and biology. There are also religious texts. The Hebrew scriptures have been translated into Greek here, creating the Septuagint. And now, newer Christian writings are beginning to appear in the collections as well. This is the intellectual feast that nourishes the minds of Alexandria. The food that fuels the body, the bread, the fish, the beer, is what makes life possible. But this, the food for the mind, is what makes life meaningful for the people who work here. The scholars of the museum live a life of the mind, and their diet consists of these words, these ideas, these arguments preserved on fragile rolls of papyrus. You feel a sense of profound reverence, but also a sense of melancholy. You are aware of the fragility of it all. The political and religious tensions you felt on the city streets are a constant threat to this sanctuary of reason. The rising tide of Christian fervor often views the pagan knowledge of the Greeks with suspicion, even hostility. The mobs that riot in the marketplace could one day turn their anger on this place. The library is a symbol of human resilience and our desperate attempt to cheat oblivion. It is an act of faith, faith that the words and ideas of the past are worth preserving, that knowledge is a treasure to be passed down through the generations. It is a testament to the idea that a civilization is defined not just by the empires it builds or the battles it wins, but by the thoughts it thinks and the stories it tells. You walk out of the library and back into the fading afternoon light of the gardens. The quiet hum of intellectual life continues around you. For now, the sanctuary holds. For now, the scrolls are safe. But you feel a chill in the air that has nothing to do with the setting sun. The world is changing, and the placid, scholarly life of the museum cannot remain insulated from that change forever. Its greatest test is yet to come. The grand, impersonal history of Alexandria, with its monumental library and sprawling markets, now sharpens into a single, focused point of consciousness. The world of scrolls and scholars is no longer something you observe. It is your world. You are Hypatia. It is the early 5th century, around the year 410. You are a philosopher, a mathematician, and an astronomer, one of the last and greatest minds of the classical pagan tradition. Your day begins as the first hint of gray light filters through the unshuttered window of your home. Your house is in a respectable, though not ostentatious, part of the city. It is built in the Greco-Roman style, with rooms arranged around a central courtyard. The air in your bedroom is cool. You rise from a simple wooden bed, the mattress filled with wool, not straw, a sign of moderate comfort. You are not an ascetic, but neither do you live in lavish luxury. Your wealth is intellectual, not material. You pour water from a ceramic pitcher into a basin and wash your face. The water is cool and refreshing. There is no elaborate morning routine, no complex array of cosmetics. Your focus is on the mind, not the body. You dress in a simple, elegant stola, the traditional robe of a Roman matron, though you are unmarried and have no children. Your life is dedicated to philosophy. You walk into your study. This is the heart of your home and your life. It is not a grand, public hall like the library, but a private sanctuary. The room is lined with wooden shelves, and on them are your personal copies of the essential texts. Not thousands of scrolls, but a carefully curated collection of the masters. Plato, Aristotle, and, most importantly for you, Plotinus and the other Neoplatonists. The room smells of old papyrus and the faint, inky scent of your own work. Unlike the city's many residents who rely on cookshops, your household has a small kitchen. A servant, perhaps an older woman who has been with your family for years, prepares your morning meal. It is simple, reflecting the philosophical ideal of moderation. There is no heavy porridge or rich pastry. Your breakfast consists of a piece of good wheat bread, a handful of olives, and a few dates or a piece of fresh fruit, like a fig or a small bunch of grapes. It is light, easily digestible, and provides the energy you need for a morning of intense mental work. To drink, you have a cup of water or perhaps a very heavily diluted wine, following the old Greek custom. Your father, Theon, was a renowned mathematician and a scholar at the Museum. He raised you as his intellectual heir, a highly unusual path for a woman in this era. From him, you inherited not just a brilliant mind, but a deep respect for the disciplined life of a scholar. You eat not for pleasure, but for sustenance. The real feast will come later when you open a scroll. You sit at your desk, a sturdy wooden table. The first hours of the day are for your own research. This is the quietest time before the city fully awakens, before your students arrive. You unroll a scroll of Plato's Timaeus, a dialogue about the nature of the physical world and the universe. The papyrus is smooth but delicate under your fingers. You read the lines of Greek, your mind engaging with a conversation that took place 800 years ago. For you, philosophy is not just an academic subject. It is a way of life, a spiritual path. As a Neoplatonist, you believe that the chaotic material world you see around you is a mere shadow of a higher intellectual reality, a perfect, eternal realm of the One. The goal of the philosopher is to purify the soul through reason and contemplation, to ascend from the world of shadows towards this ultimate reality. Your breakfast was a physical act of sustenance, but this is the true nourishment for your soul. You lose yourself in the complex arguments, in the beauty of the logic. You might make notes on a separate piece of papyrus or on a reusable wax tablet, scratching out your thoughts with a stylus. You are not just a reader, you are a participant in this ancient conversation. You write commentaries on these classic works, clarifying their difficult passages and adding your own insights. None of your complete written works will survive to the modern day, a tragic loss that historians deeply lament. We know of your work only through the letters of your students and the references of other writers. After an hour or two of this deep study, you might turn to mathematics. For a Platonist, mathematics is the language of the cosmos, the first step on the ladder of ascent from the physical to the metaphysical. You work on problems in geometry or algebra. You find a deep, calming beauty in the elegant certainty of a mathematical proof, a stark contrast to the messy, irrational world outside your window. The sounds of the city are beginning to grow. You can hear the rumble of cart wheels on the stone pavement, the calls of street vendors, the distant murmur of the crowds. This is the world of shadows, the world of conflict and passion that you seek to transcend through your work. Your life is an anomaly. In a world where the intellectual lives of women were severely restricted, you are a public figure, a respected teacher who commands the admiration of the city's elite. You have chosen a life of the mind, a life of celibacy, dedicating yourself entirely to the pursuit of wisdom. You are a living embodiment of the philosophical ideal. As the morning progresses, you prepare for the next part of your day, teaching. You will soon leave the sanctuary of your study and enter the public sphere, where you will guide your students through the same complex ideas that you have been contemplating. Your simple breakfast and your quiet morning of study have prepared you for this. They have centered your mind and fortified your spirit. You are about to step out of your tranquil home and into a city seething with tensions that will ultimately and tragically consume you. But for now, in the calm of the morning, there is only the scroll, the proof, and the quiet, determined pursuit of truth. Section 11. The quiet contemplation of your morning study gives way to the demands of your public role. It is time for your lectures. You leave your home, perhaps accompanied by a couple of loyal servants for protection, and walk the familiar route to the building where you teach. It might be a hall within the museum complex, or perhaps a private lecture space you rent. The streets are now fully alive, a chaotic symphony of commerce and conversation, but you move through it with a practiced, dignified composure. People recognize you. Some bow their heads in respect. You are a familiar and esteemed figure in the city. You enter the lecture hall. It is a simple, tiered space with rows of stone or wooden benches rising up from a central floor where you will stand. The room is already filling up with your students, and they are a testament to your reputation and the unique intellectual climate of Alexandria. They are not a monolithic group. Looking out at their faces, you see the city's diversity reflected. There are the sons of wealthy pagan families, young men who see philosophy as the ultimate refinement of a classical education. There are earnest young Christians, sent by their families to learn rhetoric and mathematics from the best teacher in the city, even if she is a pagan. There are future bishops and future imperial officials sitting side by side. One of your most devoted students and correspondents, whose letters provide historians with much of what we know about you, is Synesius of Cyrene, who would later become a Christian bishop. This mixed audience is a testament to your teaching. You do not proselytize for your pagan beliefs. You teach mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy as disciplines of pure reason, accessible to anyone with a sharp enough mind, regardless of their faith. Your classroom is one of the few places in the city where these different groups can meet on neutral ground, united by a shared respect for logic and learning. There's no online course forum for them to argue in, just this shared physical space where intellectual respect is the price of admission. You stand before them. There is no podium, no microphone. There is just your voice, and you have learned to project it so that it carries to the back of the hall. You begin the day's lesson. Perhaps today, the subject is astronomy. You are not just teaching from old texts. You are an active scientist. You might be teaching them about the work of Claudius Ptolemy, whose geocentric model of the universe, with its complex system of epicycles and deferents, was the standard astronomical textbook. You don't just have them read Ptolemy. You make the concepts come alive. You might use a diagram drawn on a large slate or a sand table to illustrate the fiendishly complex orbits. You might show them an astrolabe. You are known to have been an expert in the design and use of this beautiful and complex instrument. It is a handheld model of the universe, a disc of brass intricately engraved with star charts and celestial grids. You show them how, by rotating the different plates, they can use it to predict the rising and setting of stars, to tell time at night, or even to cast a horoscope. It is a practical tool, a teaching aid, and a work of art all in one. It feels solid and cool in your hands, a physical manifestation of the elegant, mathematical order you believe governs the cosmos. Or perhaps the day's lesson is in philosophy. You might be leading them through a difficult passage from Plato or Plotinus. Your method is not a dry lecture. It is interactive, following the Socratic tradition. You pose questions. You challenge your students' assumptions. Plotinus tells us the soul descends into the body, you might say, your voice clear and measured. But if the higher realm is one of perfection, why would the soul ever choose to leave it? What is the nature of this fall? Is it a punishment or a necessary part of a cosmic process? You let the question hang in the air. A student, a young Christian, might raise his hand. Master, perhaps it is like the story of the prodigal son. The soul leaves its father's house only to learn, through the suffering of the material world, to appreciate its true home. A pagan student from a traditional family might counter, but that implies a flaw in the original state. Plato suggests we are here because of a failure of a previous life. We are trapped in the world of shadows, and philosophy is the key to our escape. You listen to them all, guiding the debate, correcting flawed logic, encouraging deeper thought. You are not giving them answers. You are teaching them how to think. You are training their minds in the rigorous discipline of reason. This is your core mission. You believe that reason is a universal tool, a divine faculty shared by all humanity that can lead the soul towards truth. You are a captivating speaker. Your students hang on your every word. Synesius would later write of your divine voice and inspired teaching. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. You communicate a profound passion for your subject, a deep and infectious love of wisdom. But even here, in this haven of reason, the tensions of the outside world intrude. You know that the ideas you discuss, the eternal nature of the soul, the divinity of the cosmos, the path to salvation through reason, are in direct competition with the teachings of the increasingly powerful Christian Church. The Bishop of Alexandria, a man named Cyril, is a powerful and ruthless figure who sees your Neoplatonic school as a dangerous rival. You choose your words carefully. You stick to the language of pure philosophy, avoiding direct criticism of any religious doctrine. But the very act of teaching classical, pagan philosophy is a political statement in this charged environment. Some of your Christian students might be struggling to reconcile your teachings with the dogma they learn in church. The peaceful, intellectual atmosphere of your classroom is an island in a sea of rising fanaticism. As the lecture concludes, your students gather their wax tablets and papyrus notes. They talk excitedly among themselves as they file out of the hall. You have, for a few hours, lifted them out of the chaotic city and into the serene, ordered world of ideas. You have given them a taste of the intellectual feast that sustains you. You watch them go, a mixture of pride and concern in your heart. You are shaping the next generation of the city's leaders. You are arming them with the tools of reason and critical thought. You hope it will be enough to help them navigate the turbulent times ahead. You hope they will choose the path of wisdom over the path of violence. But you are a philosopher, not a prophet. You cannot know that the very forces of irrationality you are fighting against are already gathering, and that you will become their most famous target. The intellectual sanctuary of your lecture hall feels increasingly fragile as you step back out into the city. The clarity of a geometric proof and the logical elegance of a Platonic dialogue are no match for the raw, chaotic passions that are beginning to boil in the streets of Alexandria. The city's simmering tensions, long a part of its cosmopolitan character, are now reaching a dangerous and volatile pitch. Navigating this world requires a different kind of intelligence than solving a mathematical equation. It requires political savvy, caution, and a keen awareness of the shifting currents of power. The central conflict that dominates Alexandrian life is the bitter rivalry between two men, the imperial prefect, Orestes, and the Christian bishop, Cyril. You find yourself caught directly in the middle of this power struggle. Orestes is the highest-ranking representative of the Roman emperor in Egypt. He is your friend, your student, and your admirer. He represents the old order, the classical Greco-Roman tradition of governance and culture. He regularly attends your lectures and consults you for advice. In a city full of religious factionalism, he values your calm, rational perspective. When you finish your teaching for the day, you might ride in your chariot, a sign of your high status, to the prefect's palace for a private meeting. The palace is a world of secular power. It smells of polished marble, beeswax, and the ink of official documents. You and Orestes might sit in a quiet courtyard garden, discussing matters of civic importance. He might complain about Cyril's latest provocations, his frustration evident in his voice. The man is insatiable, he might say. He is not content to be a spiritual leader. He wants to rule the city. He has his own army of monks, his own courts. He undermines my authority at every turn. You listen patiently. Your advice to him is always one of moderation and reason. You urge him to uphold the law, to be firm but fair, and not to be drawn into a cycle of escalating violence. You are a voice of classical virtue, advocating for a rational, orderly society, but you are both aware that the tide of history is against you. The old pagan world that produced you is fading, and the new Christian world, represented by Cyril, is on the ascendant. Cyril, the patriarch of Alexandria, is a formidable figure. He is a brilliant theologian, a master politician, and a ruthless enforcer of Christian orthodoxy. From his perspective, he is fighting a holy war to purify the city of heresy and paganism. He sees your influence over Orestes as a direct threat to his authority and his mission. He cannot attack the prefect directly, as Orestes has the backing of the Roman legions, but he can attack you. You feel the effects of his enmity in subtle ways at first. The mood on the street begins to shift. When you ride in your chariot, you notice more hostile stares. You hear whispers, snippets of conversations that stop abruptly when you pass. The respect you once commanded from all corners of the city is beginning to curdle into suspicion. The agents of this change are often the Parabolani, a brotherhood of monks officially employed by the church as nurses and attendants to the sick. In practice, they function as Cyril's private militia, a fanatical street army that he can deploy to intimidate his enemies. They are a common sight in the city, dressed in their rough habits, their faces filled with a burning, zealous certainty. You learn to avoid the districts where they congregate. There is no social media to spread rumors, But the ancient world had its own highly effective, if slower, viral networks. Gossip in the marketplace, whispers in the taverns, and sermons in the churches. A vicious rumor campaign begins. It starts in the pulpits and spreads through the city like a disease. Cyril's preachers begin to openly denounce you. They call you a sorceress, a witch who uses black magic to beguile the prefect and turn him against the one true faith. They twist your knowledge of astronomy into evidence of sinister astrology. They portray your philosophical celibacy not as a sign of dedication, but as something unnatural and demonic. This is a terrifyingly effective strategy. In an age of widespread superstition, these accusations are potent. The common people of the city, who once looked upon you with awe, now begin to look at you with fear and hatred. The complex Neoplatonic philosophy you teach is boiled down into a simple, terrifying caricature. You are an enemy of God. Your friends and students are worried. They urge you to be more discreet, to stay at home, to stop your public lectures until the situation cools down. Synesius, your former student, now a bishop in a nearby city, writes you letters full of concern. He knows the danger of fanaticism, but you refuse to hide. To do so would be a betrayal of everything you stand for. You believe in the power of reason and the importance of a public, philosophical life. To retreat into the shadows would be to concede victory to the forces of ignorance and fear. One day, the conflict erupts into open violence. A group of Cyril's monks publicly insults Orestes in the street. In the ensuing chaos, one of them throws a stone, striking the prefect and drawing blood. The monk, named Ammonius, is arrested by the prefect's guards, tortured, and dies in custody. Orestes has him publicly displayed as a warning. Cyril responds by declaring the dead monk a martyr and a saint, delivering a fiery sermon that further inflames his followers. The city is now a tinderbox. The political rivalry has become a religious war. The conflict is no longer about civic authority. It is about good versus evil, saints versus demons. And you have been cast in the role of the chief demon. You continue to teach. You continue to advise Orestes, your public posture one of unwavering calm. But you are not naive. You can feel the danger tightening around you like a knot. The food you eat in your quiet home tastes the same, but the world outside your door has become a place of poison and peril. You are a symbol, and in the brutal politics of Alexandria, symbols are often the first casualties. The intellectual nourishment you find in your scrolls cannot protect you from the very real hunger of the mob, a hunger for certainty, for a simple enemy, and for blood. In the face of the growing storm, the quiet sanctuary of your study becomes more important than ever. It is not just a place of work, but a refuge for your mind, a fortress of reason against the tide of irrationality washing over the city. Here, surrounded by the tools of your trade, you can reaffirm your connection to the orderly, beautiful world of ideas that feels so distant from the chaos outside. Your tools are not the hammers and chisels of a craftsman, but they are just as essential to your work. They are the instruments of a thinker, the physical objects that allow you to engage with the abstract realms of mathematics and philosophy. The most fundamental tool, of course, is the scroll. You handle them with a practiced, gentle touch. The papyrus, made from reeds harvested from the Nile Delta just miles from the city, is the very fabric of your intellectual life. Unrolling a text by Aristotle or Euclid is like shaking hands with a mind across the centuries. The black ink made of soot, water, and gum Arabic forms the elegant Greek letters that are the building blocks of your world. You have your own writing implements, a sharpened reed pen or calamos, and a block of solid ink that you mix with water. The act of writing itself, of forming the letters, of composing a sentence, is a deeply focusing, meditative practice. Beside your desk, you might have a wax tablet. This is the notepad of the ancient world. It is a shallow, rectangular wooden tray filled with a layer of blackened beeswax. Using a pointed stylus, usually made of bronze or bone, you can scratch notes, work out a mathematical problem, or draft a passage of a commentary. The other end of the stylus is flattened and spatulate, so you can use it to smooth over the wax, erasing your work and leaving a clean slate. It is an endlessly reusable, and therefore precious, resource. There is no endless supply of cheap paper. Every piece of papyrus is valuable. The wax tablet is for the fleeting thought, the rough draft, the process of thinking made visible. As a renowned mathematician, you have other tools. You have a set of dividers and a straightedge, simple instruments of bronze or wood. With these, you can replicate the geometric proofs of the masters, drawing perfect circles and straight lines, exploring the beautiful, unchanging relationships between shapes and numbers. This is a world of certainty. The angles of a triangle always add up to the same sum, a truth that feels solid and reassuring when the human world outside is descending into madness. You are also an astronomer, and for this, you have more complex and beautiful instruments. The astrolabe, which you teach your students to use, is a favorite. Holding it in your hand, you feel a connection to the cosmos. Its interlocking plates and pointers are a miniature, handheld replica of the heavens. It is a product of immense intellectual effort, combining observational astronomy, sophisticated geometry, and skilled metal working. To use it is to participate in the great human endeavor to understand our place in the universe. It is a tool of science, but it feels like a religious object, a key to deciphering the divine mind. Another instrument you are said to have worked on is the hydroscope, or what might be more accurately called a hydrometer. It is a simple but ingenious device for measuring the density of liquids. It consists of a weighted, sealed tube with graduated markings. When you place it in a liquid, it floats, and the depth to which it sinks tells you about the liquid's specific gravity. Your student Synesius famously wrote to you asking for you to have one made and sent to him, as he was ill and needed to test the quality of the water. This is a fascinating, humanizing detail. Amidst your lofty philosophical speculations, you are also engaged in practical science, helping a friend with a real-world problem. You are not a disembodied intellect, but a hands-on inventor and engineer. These tools are more than just objects. They are the embodiment of a whole worldview, a testament to the power of human reason to observe, to measure, and to understand the world. They represent a tradition of inquiry, of curiosity, and of a belief in a rational, ordered cosmos. This is the pagan worldview that your enemies so despise. For them, truth is a matter of divine revelation, found in a sacred text and interpreted by clerical authority. Any attempt to find truth through independent reason or scientific observation is seen as arrogant and even demonic. You look at your astrolabe, its elegant brass circles reflecting the lamplight. To you, it is a tool for appreciating the mathematical beauty of God's creation. To your detractors, it is a tool for pagan divination, a way of circumventing the authority of the church. You look at your scrolls of Plato. To you, they are a guide to purifying the soul and ascending to the divine. To your enemies, they are full of dangerous, heathen ideas that lead people away from the one true path to salvation. The conflict between you and Cyril is not just a personal or political rivalry. It is a clash of epistemologies, a fundamental disagreement about how we know what we know. It is a battle between the book of Scripture and the book of nature, between the authority of revelation and the authority of reason. Historians would argue that this is an oversimplification, that many Christian thinkers integrated Greek philosophy into their theology. But in the heated, polarized atmosphere of 5th century Alexandria, these nuances were lost. The conflict was framed in the starkest possible terms. As you sit in your study, the tools of your trade arranged neatly around you, you feel the profound gulf that separates your world from the world of the mob. You find comfort in the clean lines of a geometric diagram, the logical flow of a philosophical argument, the predictable movements of the stars as modeled in your astrolabe. These things are your companions. They are quiet, they are rational, and they are true. You hold onto this certainty as a shield. The world outside may be governed by rumor, passion, and violence, but in this room, reason still reigns. You dip your reed pen in ink and turn back to your work, transcribing a line from Plotinus. It is an act of defiance, an assertion of the enduring power of the intellectual life. It is the only weapon you have, and you will continue to wield it until the very end. The cold, clear certainty of your study, with its logical proofs and rational instruments, offers no protection from what is to come. The abstract battle of ideas is about to become brutally, terrifyingly physical. It is the month of March, in the year 415. The season is Lent, a time of fasting and heightened religious fervor for the city's Christians, making the atmosphere even more tense and volatile than usual. The day begins like any other. You have your simple breakfast, you spend the morning in study, you deliver your lecture. You are aware of the danger, but you have lived with it for months now. It has become a dull, constant pressure, a background noise to your life. You cannot let it paralyze you. You hold to your routine as an act of will, a refusal to be intimidated. In the afternoon, you decide to visit the prefect, Orestes. Perhaps he has requested your counsel, or perhaps you feel the need to discuss the city's ever-worsening mood. You leave the relative safety of the lecture hall and get into your chariot. It is a simple, open carriage, your usual mode of transport. As you make your way along the Canopic Way, the city's grandest street, you are a visible and recognizable figure. Today, however, the whispers and hostile stares you have grown accustomed to have been replaced by something far more menacing. A crowd begins to gather as you pass. At first, it is just a few figures, then a dozen, then 100. Their faces are not merely unfriendly, they are contorted with rage. You can hear their voices, a low rumble that grows into a roar of shouted insults and accusations. The sorceress, the witch, the enemy of God. At the head of the mob, you recognize the fanatical face of a man named Peter the Lector. He is not a monk or a priest, but a minor church official, a reader in one of Cyril's churches. He is known for his fiery rhetoric and his unquestioning devotion to the bishop. He acts as the mob's leader, his voice whipping them into an even greater frenzy. Your driver tries to urge the horses forward to push through the growing crowd, but it is too late. The mob swarms your chariot, blocking its path. Hands reach for you, grabbing at your robes, at the reins of the horses. The sound is deafening, a chaotic mix of shouting, the frightened whinnying of the horses, and the splintering sound of wood as the crowd begins to tear at the chariot itself. You are pulled from the carriage and dragged to the ground. The smooth, familiar stones of the street are suddenly hard and cold against your body. The sky, the colonnades, the faces of the crowd, it all becomes a terrifying, chaotic blur. Your philosophical composure, your lifetime of training in rational detachment, shatters in an instant, replaced by a primal, animal fear. The mob, under Peter's direction, drags you towards a nearby building. It is the Caesareum, a massive temple originally built by Cleopatra in honor of Mark Antony and later converted into the city's main cathedral. The irony is savage and inescapable. You, the great pagan philosopher, are being dragged to your death in what has become the epicenter of Christian power in Alexandria. You are hauled up the stone steps and through the great doors, into the cavernous interior of the church. The space, meant for worship and contemplation, becomes a chamber of horror. The mob is no longer a collection of individuals. It has become a single organism, a monster driven by a singular, murderous rage. Inside the church, they tear the clothes from your body. This is the ultimate act of humiliation, stripping you not just of your garments, but of your status, your dignity, your very identity as a respected scholar and noble woman. You are no longer Hypatia the philosopher. You are merely a body, a thing to be destroyed. The historical accounts of what happens next are brutal and unflinching. The mob, in its frenzy, uses sharpened potsherds or oyster shells, the debris of the city, as makeshift blades. They scrape your skin from your flesh. The pain is unimaginable, a white-hot agony that consumes all thought. The scent of incense in the church is overwhelmed by the metallic smell of your own blood. The sacred art on the walls depicting scenes of saints and martyrs bears silent witness to this new, unsanctioned martyrdom. They do not stop there. They tear your body limb from limb. The great mind that contemplated the heavens and unraveled the most complex philosophical arguments is reduced to butchered meat on the floor of a church. The frenzy, at last, subsides. The act is done, but the evidence of their crime must be disposed of. The mob gathers up the dismembered pieces of your body, carries them out of the church, and takes them to a place called Cinerin. There, they build a great pyre and burn what remains of you to ashes. The smoke rises into the Alexandrian sky, a final, terrible punctuation mark on a life dedicated to the light of reason. The news of your murder sends a shockwave through the city's elite, both pagan and Christian. Your friend Orestes is horrified and powerless. He soon gives up his struggle with Cyril and leaves Egypt. Your students are heartbroken. Even some moderate Christians are appalled by the barbarity of the act. The historian Socrates Scholasticus, a Christian writing a generation later, would condemn the murder as a brutal act that brought great disgrace upon Cyril and the Church of Alexandria. But for the perpetrators, it is a victory. They have eliminated a powerful symbol of paganism and a key ally of their political rival. The forces of fanaticism have won. The streets fall quiet, but it is the quiet of fear, not of peace. The vibrant intellectual marketplace of ideas has been replaced by the brutal certainty of the mob. Your death marks a turning point, a dark chapter in the history of a great city, and a tragic testament to the fragility of civilization in the face of hatred. The smoke from your funeral pyre has long since dissipated into the Mediterranean air, but the echoes of your life and death linger in the dust of Alexandria. The immediate aftermath is a chilling silence. The forces of reason and moderation are in retreat. The brutal, public murder of a figure as respected as you has had its intended effect. It has terrorized any opposition to the bishop's authority. Your school of Neoplatonism in Alexandria is effectively shattered. Your students disperse, some fleeing the city, others retreating into private life. The vibrant intellectual community you fostered now broken and scattered. For a time, it seems as though the forces of fanaticism have won a total victory. The memory of your brutal end serves as a stark warning to anyone who would dare to publicly challenge the dominant religious power. The space for open, rational debate, a space you fought so hard to maintain, has shrunk dramatically. The city, once a beacon of intellectual freedom, has become a place where dangerous ideas are best kept to oneself. Yet a legacy is a resilient thing. It is not so easily burned to ashes. While your body was destroyed and your writings were lost, your story was not. It was told and retold, first by your grieving students, then by historians, both pagan and Christian, who recognized the tragedy and significance of what had happened. You became a symbol, but not the one your murderers intended. You were transformed into a martyr for philosophy, a victim of the eternal struggle between reason and ignorance, tolerance and fanaticism. Centuries pass. The Roman Empire collapses. Alexandria's glory fades. The great library and its daughter libraries are gone, their scrolls lost to fire, neglect, and time. The world enters what some would call a dark age. And yet, the light of Greek thought, the very tradition you represented, was never entirely extinguished. It was preserved, ironically, not just in isolated Christian monasteries, but also in the great centers of learning in the Islamic world. Arab scholars translated the works of Plato, Aristotle, and Ptolemy, preserving them, studying them, and adding their own brilliant insights. Your name was known to them, a respected figure in the history of science. Then, during the Renaissance in Europe, these texts began to flow back into the West. The rediscovery of classical philosophy and science sparked a new age of inquiry, a rebirth of the very spirit you embodied. Later, during the Enlightenment in the 18th century, your story was revived again. Thinkers like Voltaire saw you as a perfect hero for their age, a beautiful, virtuous woman of science and reason, brutally murdered by religious fanatics. You became a poster child for the fight against superstition and clerical tyranny. This version of your story, while powerful, is also a simplification. It strips away some of the complexities of your own Neoplatonic beliefs, which were deeply spiritual, and turns you into a purely secular, modern-style scientist. But it ensured your name would never be forgotten. Each generation, it seems, rediscovers you and refashions you into the symbol they need. You have been a feminist icon, a champion of science, a martyr for free thought. Your true legacy is perhaps more subtle and more profound. It lies in the quiet persistence of the questions you asked. It lives in every classroom where a teacher encourages a student to think for themselves. It is present in every laboratory where a scientist seeks to understand the cosmos through observation and measurement. It echoes in every society that struggles to maintain a space for civil, rational debate in the face of division and hatred. The struggle you were caught in, between tolerance and intolerance, inquiry and dogma, the complex truth and the simple, violent certainty, did not end with your death on the floor of that church. It is a struggle that continues to this day, in every culture and in every generation. Your life is a testament to the incredible power of the human mind, and your death is a chilling reminder of how easily the light of reason can be extinguished. But your story, whispered through the centuries, is an act of defiance. It is a promise that even when books are burned and scholars are murdered, ideas are harder to kill. They are resilient. They go into hiding, they cross borders, they change languages, but they have a way of surviving, of waiting patiently in the dust for a new generation to find them, to cherish them, and to carry them forward once more. The echoes of your voice, teaching reason in a chaotic city, can still be heard, a faint but persistent whisper in the long, complicated history of the human search for wisdom. The dust of Alexandria settles, the echoes of its triumphs and tragedies fading into a soft, distant hum. The taste of Macedonian wine, the scent of Persian spices, the heft of an astrolabe, the dry rustle of a papyrus scroll, these sensations recede, leaving behind the quiet comfort of your own bed. The grand sweep of history, from the ambition of a young king to the courage of a female philosopher, reminds us of the enduring human spirit. Their struggles for knowledge, for power, for understanding, were fought on a stage so different from our own. Yet the core of their humanity feels deeply familiar. Their world lacked so much of what we take for granted: the simple certainties of science, the ease of global communication, the comfort of a warm and well-lit home. Yet, in that world, they built empires, they calculated the size of the earth, they debated the nature of the soul. Their resilience is a quiet testament to our own capacity to endure, to learn, and to strive. As you drift now toward sleep, feel a sense of gratitude for the soft pillow beneath your head, for the peace of your room, for the simple safety of the night. The great, noisy, violent story of the past has been told, and now it gives way to rest. Let the silence be a blanket and let the darkness be a cradle. There are no more battles to be fought, no more theorems to be proven. There is only the gentle, rhythmic tide of your own breath, carrying you out into the calm, deep ocean of sleep.